Hey! No! It's not Frank. Hello everybody and welcome to the Filipino Freethinkers podcast that's also a video. I'm Red.
I'm Tin.
And today we're talking about Habeas Corpus. If you haven't heard of him, her?
He's a him?
Him. I haven't, obviously. But actually I have. I read about this person who passed the bar exam and he's now going to be a lawyer. He has an interesting story. Like, according to the article that I read, here's a link to that article. He was named Habeas Corpus. He was teased by his parents, by his friends.
By his parents?
Yeah, even by his parents. But when he eventually found out what it meant, and it actually means your right to be brought before a judge, like before being detained, so that the judge could decide whether your detention is legal. So that's what the writ of Habeas Corpus means. But back to Habeas Corpus with a Z, when he figured out what it meant, he wanted to be a lawyer, and fast forward to today, he has passed the bar exam. But what we're going to talk about is interesting names that parents give their children. Not just, we're not just going to enumerate those interesting names BuzzFeed style. We are going to discuss whether it's right for parents to do this, to not really consider, or do they even consider? Yeah, that's what we're going to discuss. So, aside from Habeas Corpus, what other interesting names do we know?
Is that spaghetti?
Spaghetti, macaroni.
Yours, sincerely yours.
Are they separate names? I know that there's a truly yours, but
okay.
These are siblings, and they were on that list of people who took the entrance exams. And did they pass? Maybe they did.
Yeah, I think.
But still, the point is, what we want to discuss is macaroni. 88. There's a number, there's a year, so that they don't forget when their birth date year is. Spaghetti 85 or something like that. Truly yours. By the way, if you guys are listening, we'd like to hear about what you think about your parents naming you these things. I'm sure there's an interview out there. We should do better research for these things. But anyway, would it change your personality fundamentally if your parents decided to name you something like, carbonara? If you were named carbonara or parma ham instead of Kristine, do you think it would change your personality or who you are?
Yeah, probably. Like, I'd either hate or love parma ham.
Yeah, but you grow up with it. I wonder about these things. Of course, it's only.
But wasn't there a study before that said that like dentist people became dentists?
Yeah, I read about that
so
in
it does matter.
Freakonomics. That dentists, but there's a high likelihood of you becoming a dentist
in the States.
In the States, but
yeah.
I also read a competing study that debunks this, saying that for any other profession, let's say a lawyer, like there would be a high number of dentists, and that's just because of the number of dentist names
in the world.
Then dentist children in that particular time when they did that study, but
I mean, if we look at Habeas Corpus, like
yeah, it turns out
he became a lawyer.
Yeah, like if you name someone President of the Philippines, Corpus, like would he want to run for President of the Philippines? Even if he's an American, that would be an interesting experiment. Name an American President of the Philippines. Would he migrate to the Philippines and change his nationality just to
be the president?
Yeah, be the president of the Philippines. So we're having a lot of fun with this. Like I was saying, the parents, when they thought of the names for their kids, I don't think they were trying to be mean to the kids, and they were just thinking of their own, kicks.
I don't know. I think the parents of Habeas Corpus are mean because they tease their kid about it.
yeah, they kind of did.
Yeah.
But it builds character.
I'm sure. I mean, it's a nice term. Like it means a right that we need.
it is a cool right to have, freedom of speech, free thinker, name your kid what you'd want that kid to be. But these kids, the ones with funny names, they'll get teased a lot.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the parents already knew that, but maybe they were thinking that
It's a rite of passage or something.
yeah, it builds character. We're not making light of bullying here. Sometimes bullying can be bad, but as long as it's kept in check. I don't know. There should be studies done, because if there were studies that found out that giving kids names that had a high likelihood of being teased by their peers, their classmates, or even the parents themselves, if that had a negative effect on the development of children, that could actually change the laws regarding these things. Because corporal punishment, that used to be
The norm.
the norm. I experienced it. Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess if you're a Filipino, you
At that
grew up in the
time, yeah.
80s, 90s, that's kind of the norm, because it was legal until the commercials for Bantay Bata 163 came out, and children everywhere were like, I'll call the number if you keep on doing that to me. I'm crying. Okay. You know, that shift in attitudes towards corporal punishment came about because of studies. There was this psychologist who found out that it had a negative effect on the development of children. And when that study came out, at least in the US, they changed their minds. I think it was 1966. It would be sometime before that change happened in the Philippines, I think. But in places like even in Australia or in the UK, corporal punishment is still legal. It's illegal to abuse the child, maybe hit him in the face hard enough, or there are questions on whether you have an implement, you have a weapon like a belt or something. If it's open-handed,
Then it's fine.
then it's fine. But it varies across cultures. But
Yeah.
going back to the naming of children, do you think that parents, it's obviously a toss-up here between the rights of the child and the rights of the parent? Do we treat the child as something that the parent owns? Or do we treat the child as their own person, with their own rights?
But I mean, the child can't be nameless until the child can decide for themselves that this is the name that they want.
And it's even when the child decides that it's not the name that they want. If there's an extra H,
Yeah.
an unnecessary H in the name, like Gaharik,
Or Bong.
Bohong,
Yeah.
Bohong, or Dennis. I don't know. If they want to change the name just by removing that H, that single H would cost them like some money. It's not so easy to change your name. So it kind of does give the parent a lot of
Power.
power.
Yeah.
And maybe it would be fairer if there was a way for children to change their names for free. You get that one time. I get
At
how
what age though? Because I mean, like kids
18, age of
voting.
majority, yeah. 18, you get to change your name to whatever you want.
Yeah, I guess that's fine.
Because a lot of people do, they don't use their given names anymore. There's an interest, they add an interesting twist to it. That's not
They're revamping themselves.
They are, my parents called me Ryan and Red, and I came to prefer Red, my nickname, so I'm using that from now on. You were named Kristine, and Tin, Tin is easier to say, and you've been going by that. But nicknames are another story. What we're talking about here is interesting names. So let's get back to the topic. Habeas corpus, macaroni, truly yours, carbonara, or whatever. There are many other things that a parent gets to decide about their children. But do they really have the right to decide this? I guess what parents can decide is really up to the norms or the culture of the time. Because, like I said, corporal punishment is one example. Another example is medical treatment. Cases where blood transfusion or vaccines or even taking your kids to the hospital goes against the religion of the parents. It used to be that they could do that because it was their right, but until judges decided that no, if it endangers the life of the child, then you must forego those religious freedom rights that you have and think of the well-being of the child. But even that could change. There are groups asking for the right of parents to have corporal punishment reinstated. Some states in the U.S. are doing this. So, but ultimately, what do you think is the deciding factor?
I don't know, it could sound mean to think that the only reason parents want to have kids is so that they can decide these things, like they can choose these things for their kids. It's kind of mean, right? But I mean, if you take these away from them, then why?
Why even have children if you can't decide how you can raise your children?
Yeah.
I'm sure there are, you hear about these parents that seem to only want to have kids so that they can, they can use
have
the
an
kids,
experiment kid,
or or use the kids to serve their purposes instead of giving something to the kid. I experienced this when we had that meetup where we discussed why even have kids. A lot of people said they think they had nice genes and they wanted to add their genes to the gene pool.
Yeah.
Or they think that they would be awesome parents, and because of that they wanted to try it out. So it could be self-serving, it could be selfless, it could be
it could be a lot of things.
It could be a lot of things, but at the end of the day, these kids will grow up to become adults themselves.
Yeah.
And it's these adults who, I just thought of this right now, it will be tricky for let's say someone was named a bad name. Something like durian. I'm sure a lot of people like
It's not
durian.
a bad name.
But what if there's an odor to the person and it just fits perfectly with the name? Anyway, the kid was named Durian, and that person wants to change the laws on naming children. How likely would it be that this person would think, I wish I were named differently? You're already grown up. You rationalize these things. Names are one thing, but deciding the entire worldview, or outlook of a child it's a very serious thing. And it's not like we talked about how kids should be able to have that one extra life or extra option to change their names once they reach the age of majority. It's not as simple when it comes to religion. The statistics show that when a child is born to a certain religion, they'll probably grow into adulthood with that same religion. Although, of course, anytime, during the development of the child into adulthood, they could theoretically change their religion. But
it's so much harder than just teaching them a lot of other options.
It is. It's not so easy to change your religion, which is why a lot of people think that indoctrination itself is child abuse, especially that kind of indoctrination where you scare the children with
hell.
If you do bad things and do not confess, if you get hit by a truck, a bit morbid there, but if you get hit by a candy truck and die without having confessed them, you'll probably go to hell. And there are even these places where children are toured in places where people are being tortured in hell, Yeah, you were gonna say?
We don't even have to talk about religion. It can go as simple as, how parents scare their kids, like, oh, the policeman is going to get you.
Yeah, the policeman, the boogeyman.
Yeah.
It's not, there's even you're gonna get coal, instead of a gift.
For Christmas.
That's
like Santa's gonna get mad
benign,
at you.
Yeah, Santa's gonna get mad at you, but go to hellfire, and that's another thing. That's, I think, I think that it's child abuse, and you have to look into how much you could legislate to protect children from being tormented like this, because it scars children, psychologically, and it could, long-term memories are formed throughout childhood. There's the saying that give me the boy for 7 years and then I'll give you the man. Like, what you learn in childhood is not so easy to unlearn, and it could handicap people psychologically so that they can't function as adults. And these are things that need to be discussed. Even on issues like the reproductive health law, which, by the way, is being decided soon. Again, please be aware of what's happening.
Talk about it online.
Talk about it online. But even when it comes to the RH law, for example, when children want to protect themselves from sexually transmitted diseases, and they want to get
educated about it,
but their parents don't want to because it goes against their religion. If they want advice about artificial contraception, because they think that they might be participating in sex, and they want to learn about contraceptives, like, a lot of parents do not want this to happen, but it violates the rights of the child. There's this thing called the Convention for the Rights of the Child, the CRC, and in it, all of these human rights which have internationally been agreed on, are these things being ensured? I think that's a question that's more important than whether the
your
parents,
name is
whether your name is something that's pleasant to have and that will make you proud.
Yeah.
So, like I said, there's a lot of things that can be discussed about this issue. It all started, parenting. Another one discussion that I like to have, or that some version of this we've already had before, is parenting in general, or being a parent in general. People think that just being a parent is a right that you have with no responsibilities whatsoever. That you can have a child regardless of whether you can support it, that you can give that child a good life. But I know that the question is tricky, because how do you define a good life? There are people who are arguing, like in that meetup that I mentioned, whether there should be parental licenses. In the same way that you should have driver's licenses or gun licenses, having a child is, I think,
there's a responsibility,
a far more consequential thing than driving or even owning a gun. And why does anyone just have to get the ability to do it? That's a valid question, I think.
I think when it comes to driving, like, people can get physically hurt if you don't have the proper license.
Yeah.
But with parenting, like, it's psychological hurt.
It's not as apparent.
It's not as easily measured.
Yeah.
As accidents on the road. So,
until the child grows up and causes the death of so many other people.
Yeah.
How do you even connect that to what the parents did? While on the other hand, you can clearly see that the car hit the person.
Yeah.
But you can't see that the parents caused the child to be a certain way that made him cause the suffering and even death of many people. But so again, that's an interesting discussion to have. Maybe we'll discuss it on our next meetup. But until then, thank you so much for talking about habeas corpus with us. If habeas corpus is listening, please let us know. And thanks so much.
Bye.